Creative work is tough. In fact, studies show that 70% of people experience creative blocks at some point in their lives. That's a huge number. But here's something even more surprising. Most breakthrough ideas come from moments of frustration, not inspiration. We often hear about the joys of creativity, those sparks of genius or flashes of insight. But no one talks about the inevitable frustration that comes with it. It's part of the process, and everyone goes through it, whether you're an artist, writer, or entrepreneur. Even people like Steve Jobs or J.K. Rowling hit roadblocks. But they learned how to push through. So, what's their secret? In this video, we'll dive into the science behind creativity, how to embrace the struggle, and strategies to keep going when things get tough. You'll learn why creative blocks aren't the enemy, how to manage your energy to stay productive, and how to use failure as a tool for growth. Ready to unlock your creative potential? Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Creativity Myth. Why you don't need to be a genius when it comes to creativity. Many people think it's something you're either born with or not. But that's not true. According to a 2018 study by the Harvard Business Review, creativity is not a fixed trait. It's a skill that can be developed, just like learning to ride a bike. The idea that only certain people are creative types is one of the biggest myths holding us back. Creativity is more about showing up and doing the work than waiting for some magic spark of genius. As Twyla Tharp, a famous choreographer, said in her book The Creative Habit, creativity is a habit, and the best creativity is the result of good work habits. In other words, you don't have to feel inspired to be creative, you just need to start. A great way to do this is by developing a routine. Neuroscientists have found that routines and rituals reduce decision fatigue and free up mental energy for creative thinking. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, suggests that creating small, manageable routines helps to make creativity feel automatic, like brushing your teeth. So if you think creativity is out of your reach, think again. All it takes is some structure and practice. The more you practice, the better you get. It's not about being born with a gift, it's about building one over time. Chapter 2. Embracing Creative Block. Why stuck is the best place to start. It's easy to feel like a creative block is a sign of failure. But here's the truth. It's actually a sign you're on the right path. A 2014 Stanford study found that moments of frustration and doubt are key to breakthrough ideas. Your brain needs time to process, and creative blocks often happen just before you reach an aha moment. Imagine it like this. When you hit a block, your brain is still working behind the scenes. Your conscious mind feels stuck, but your subconscious is working overtime to connect the dots. That's why so many great ideas come to us while we're in the shower or taking a walk. It's not magic, it's science. The key is learning to embrace the block instead of fighting it. As Austin Kleon says in Steal Like an Artist, all advice is autobiographical. Every creative struggles. Everyone. Some of the best work emerges from those stuck moments because they force us to look for new solutions. Instead of seeing the block as a dead end, see it as a detour. Take a break, shift your focus, or try something completely different. The key is to keep moving, even if it feels slow. Research shows that even brief distractions, like going for a 15-minute walk, can increase creative output by up to 60%. So next time you hit a wall, remember, you're not failing. You're evolving. Take a moment to subscribe, and we'll get right back into the video. Chapter 3. The Power of Ugly Ideas. Why perfectionism kills creativity. Perfectionism is creativity's worst enemy. We often get stuck because we want every idea to be brilliant right away. But guess what? The best ideas are usually the ones that start out ugly. This is backed by research from psychologist Dean Keith Simonton, who found that creative geniuses like Beethoven and Picasso produced a high volume of bad work before landing on something great. Think of it this way. More ideas, even messy ones, mean more chances for a gem to emerge. Ira Glass, host of This American Life, says, "Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap." That gap? It's where ugly ideas live. And that's perfectly okay. Start by lowering the bar. Give yourself permission to create something terrible. In fact, aim to create something terrible. By letting go of the need for perfection, you'll free your mind to explore new possibilities. Remember, you can always refine later, but you can't edit a blank page. Another strategy is to focus on quantity over quality. A famous ceramics teacher split his students into two groups. One group was told to make a single perfect pot. The other was told to make as many pots as possible. At the end of the class, the group focused on quantity had made the best pots. Why? Because they practiced without worrying about perfection. In short, let yourself create bad art. It's part of the process. The more ugly ideas you churn out, the closer you get to brilliance. Chapter 4. Energy, not time. Managing your creative flow. We've all been told to manage our time better, but for creatives, time management isn't the whole story. The real trick? Managing your energy. It turns out that your energy levels, not the clock, are what really drive creative output. Research from the Journal of Creative Behavior shows that bursts of creative energy don't follow a standard 9-to-5 schedule. We all have natural rhythms, what some call ultradian rhythms, that determine when we're most creative. So, how do you figure out your own creative flow? Start by tracking your energy levels throughout the day. When do you feel most alert and focused? When do you hit a slump? Pay attention to these patterns for a few days, and you'll notice some clear peaks and valleys. Once you know your natural rhythm, schedule your creative work during those peak times. If you're a morning person, block off that time for brainstorming or writing. If you hit your stride in the afternoon, guard that time like gold. And don't feel guilty if your most productive time isn't when the world tells you it should be. The goal is to work with your energy, not against it. Breaks are just as important as work time. Research shows that taking short breaks every 90 minutes can boost creativity by up to 40%. Even a 5-minute walk can recharge your brain and help new ideas surface. In the end, it's all about aligning your work with your energy, not the clock. You'll feel less frustrated and more productive when you work with your body's natural rhythm. Chapter 5. The friction formula. Using constraints to fuel innovation. Constraints might sound like creativity killers, but they actually do the opposite. When you're forced to work within limits, your brain gets more inventive. A study by the University of Amsterdam found that people who faced creative constraints produced more innovative ideas than those who had unlimited freedom. The reason? Constraints force us to think in ways we wouldn't normally. When your options are limited, your brain starts to problem solve more creatively. As Jonah Lehrer writes in his book Imagine How Creativity Works, the act of narrowing one's focus helps the brain dig deeper. You can start using constraints to your advantage by setting boundaries for yourself. For example, if you're working on a design project, try limiting your color palette or using only one tool. If you're writing, give yourself a word limit or a tight deadline. These limits create friction, and friction sparks new ideas. Another strategy is to introduce constraints when you're stuck. If you can't seem to come up with a good solution, impose a rule. Solve the problem in 30 minutes, or use only 3 words to describe your idea. You'll be surprised how often this approach leads to breakthroughs. Here's a fun fact. Some of the world's greatest innovations came from constraints. Did you know that Post-it notes were invented because a scientist was trying to make a super strong adhesive but ended up with a weak one instead? That failure became one of the most successful office products ever. So, don't run from limitations. Use them. The next time you're feeling stuck, embrace a little friction. It might just lead to your best idea yet. Don't miss a beat. Subscribe to our channel for regular updates and more amazing videos.